And so, and so if people, think that that's what we want to end up with, then the question is, how does that shape what we do when we go talk to people? Do we want to get some quantitative information that's common across all the people? Do we want to have a way of recording the most important, points that they want to make in narrative form and include that narration in the report? But so I think that's one thing maybe to start the discussion on where do we want to end up, and then maybe we could talk about ways of getting there.
Mhm. Thoughts, anybody?
So I had to kill the conversation with that comment.
Can I just ask, Anna, are you taking notes?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
Great,
she is.
thank you. That's all.
I mean, did people have other thoughts about what we're trying to accomplish? I mean, I think you accomplished something through the process itself. That is, you're trying to
Yeah.
build confidence in the committee with these people by going and talking to them. Um, and so you want to make sure that you structure it in a way that, doesn't alienate or, um,
Mhm.
and some people are not going to like it. So you have to have a way of dealing with that and recording it and listening to it.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like the optimal thing we get out of this is something we can use in a broader, consultation with the community about the project later in the winter.
Yeah, I agree. Well, my thinking, just to was in a really basic way, was like a lot of people don't even know that we're doing all this work. So the first goal in my mind was just so they would know and they would understand, like, here's the project and, here's the findings so far, and we want you to be involved. So that was my first goal. But I think collecting all of this data would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Can
Deborah,
I,
did you want to say something?
go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just for some reason I joined and then came in and you'd already started. But I think um, so. I think it's important, as Catherine was saying, to just let people know what we're doing, what we've been doing, and why, because that's just very common in this town that, unless you're directly involved in something or affects you directly, you you may not know or you may not know accurately. So that's number one. Number two, just looking at that business list and having run a business in town, and many now decades ago, but Sunflower, and just being so engaged with the community and with staff and everything. I think it's really going to be important to get the business owner's perspective, and they're not all the same. Just looking at the list, you're going to get different uh, different sensitivities, different issues. Um, and we don't really have uh, a good way of gauging what the worker needs are in this town. And as far as housing, it's very limited and anecdotal. And so this is a more formal way of, at least from the business owner manager's perspective, of finding out what their experience is. So that was, I think that would be really important, of value of doing these interviews. So it's kind of twofold.
I think two things that come to my mind is that for me, the first priority this would be to establish relationship
Yeah.
with these people and to enamor them of what we're trying to do. And the other is that I don't know if anyone's thought at all about the time commitment of this kind of interview, but I'm wondering if it'd be easier, and I'm just throwing things out. I'm not saying I agree with this. Maybe do some kind of questionnaire and hand it to people and say, can you please do this? And we're trying to assess the need. We'd be happy to have a conversation, but we thought this might be more efficient for you. So I don't know. I don't want to impose on these people.
Well, one thing that's I think important to have in mind as you design this is how long do you want it to go? And that's going to shape
Right.
a lot of the other choices that you make. In
Right.
my experience, this is research, but it's kind of related, interviewing people for research that, half an hour is an absolute max. If you can do it in 20 minutes, that should be your goal. And if you're going to do it in 20 minutes, my other experience is you have to be able to exercise control because when people get interviewed, they're often, or consulted, or whatever you want to call this, they're often trying to talk to fill up the space because they're not exactly sure what you're wanting them to talk about and so how much you want them to talk. So if you want it to last 20 minutes, then you have to exercise control, which in my view means you need a fairly, good plan of what you want to get through in that time.
Can I jump in on that? We just did a survey of farmers in the county. We did a survey and we did interviews. And obviously, it's a much bigger data set, so we didn't look to interview everybody, but we looked to, uh, um, as you say, keep the interviews uh, around 20 minutes. Um, and then the questions were there to guide us in the conversation, kind of to help us so we didn't go off, because it's easy to kind of go off and maybe not have it be as uh, um, you know, to sort of have some you say control, but just like be able to, it's like if the goal is to accomplish it, to establish relationships with these businesses, find out what's going on for them and their workers with housing, and then also get some data through a survey. I mean, those are three things you could do if you, because the idea of a survey is it does help kind of format your time, right, with the person you're interviewing. And because they are busy people, they'll probably appreciate that, having both.
But one possibility is to integrate the survey with the qualitative sort of questionnaire. You'd have four or five that would pop up when they need to, that you could just do as you went so that in my opinion, a key to the surveys is to be really careful about what you put in it. You don't want a lot of questions. And then for us, it might be maybe four or five is all we need. And a lot of it we can maybe fill in ourselves about what the business is and what they do and things like that.
Mm. Where-
I also am not sure all these businesses know where all their employees live and how they're making their way.
Maybe one
I
of the
mean,
things
am
we
I
could,
wrong? I'm sorry?
yeah, I was gonna say maybe one of the things we could ask if we do have a chance to interview with them is if we could tell them if their employees are interested in speaking with us or giving us their perspective, if they they could share their info with us
Right.
if they're willing. So like open that up and say we'd love to speak directly to employees as well to again hear more about that need for people who work in town and want to live in town.
Because I think it's about the business owner's need, but it's also about the employee's need.
Absolutely.
It's those people who work four jobs and a shift at Pearl Moon and a shift at Sunflower and whatever, and they're trying to make ends meet. Those are the people we have to kind of try to find.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just say quickly from my perspective that I would be surprised if business owners didn't at least have sort of like an aggregate data of where their employees are living. If
Good.
they're doing their payroll and stuff, they need to have that information. So, um, personally, I feel like they probably would have that info, but I do think to Rebecca's point, asking if their employees would want to speak to us separately if we had additional questions that were more employee based rather than employer based is also potentially not a bad idea, depending on what direction we want to go in.
The thing that's nice about at least collecting some of the survey questions while you're there is you'll get the answers. Because if you leave a sheet,
Right.
you often don't, and you
Good
get a
point.
biased sample then because you get people who want to send it in, and the people who don't, and they're not the same kinds of people. So, um,
100% agree. Yeah, that's absolutely. But I think also the idea of employees, staff, um, those that may want to speak about their needs uh, will give us different information, perhaps, that also is going to be very valuable to like building a sort of a profile of what the needs are. What are the needs of the employers? What are the needs of the people who work in these businesses?
Mhm.
And and also to the extent that I don't know if I haven't had a chance to see if this was a question that you're considering, but how far do people travel to work? Um, that's when earlier in the housing committee we just had, as I said, anecdotal information from people who were traveling quite a distance to work in Woodstock and having issues, not having housing, not having a lot of money, and would really benefit from something that was closer in and affordable.
Maybe if we can develop even a worker survey, like if we can get some employees referred to us and get a chance to speak to them, we could sort of have a separate survey that asks something like that, like how far away do you have to travel to work here, etc.
And obviously, these are all what do you call it? Uh, um, at their, if they wish to participate, obviously it's voluntary.
Yeah.
Maybe could suggest that we start talking a little bit about the kinds of questions that we
Well,
might want to ask. Does people want to, would that be helpful at this stage?
Gregory emailed the group at 5:12 with some notes that we had taken from our October 22nd meeting. And there were some questions that we already had potentially written down there. And I think that is a list of one, two, three, four, five, six. So that's six questions there. Some of those I think are related to some questions that John, you had in your sheet. And so I guess the first question would be, if we only want to ask like four or five questions, what type of questions do we want to prioritize?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just responded to that one because I had also started collecting some questions that I think we've also aggregated in here. So the document there that I think had some of our earlier questions. So
Okay.
we can kind of house them all there as we talk through them if you want.
Let's consider
Oh, there it is.
doing that here. If we took these are the hiring and retention questions and the parking questions. Um, and maybe we could edit it in this meeting. Would that make any sense? Do people want to try to do that to integrate these lists, or is that not worth our time?
I mean, I feel like that would be a good use of time. We can see what questions overlap and then, sort of combine them together and then, talk about what we've got and, if there's anything that sort of we can reword to get it to one question. Again, I think it's dependent on how many questions we want to ask.
Well, let's talk about the hiring and retention. Again, my experience is that you get more information if you ask concrete questions than if you ask abstract ones. And so
Mhm.
Agree.
Um, if you say, can you give me examples of situations where housing affected the hiring or retention of workers? That gets you a lot more to talk about than, in general, is housing or retention a problem for you? So that's one thing we could talk about, the trade-offs of different ways of asking it. But this first one is about hiring and retention. The second one is about what kinds of stuff they need, studios, two bedrooms, walking distance. I know we've already heard stuff about how far do they drive, right? Um, which might be fit here. But I guess my intention here is to try to start a bit of brainstorming about these questions and get them all in one place and then maybe think about how to ask them.
I,
So,
I'm curious because Anna's, I mean, I'm not sure anyone else, but certainly Anna has like real time experience now uh, with employees and where she works, and these questions. I'm curious as um, in terms of hiring and retention. I mean, I'm just wondering how much you would know about the cost, how the cost of housing has affected staff. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not quite sure that's the right framing of the question. It may be like um, more basic is like people that apply to work in your business. Are they, and who you hire? Are they largely local? Do they come from outside the community? Is access or is housing uh, in in or near the community something that has you know is a concern to them or their ability to be able to perform the work you need.
I would also like to just ask the question, if they could live in Woodstock, would they?
Oh, that's a good one.
Because we've heard from one member of the community, at least I have many, many times, that maybe the workers don't really want to live in Woodstock. So I would like to know for sure. Um,
What employers think they know about their employees. I mean, let's
yeah, and then that's also the question for the employees.
right,
If you could live here, would you? I would like to
right.
know that.
I think that's a good question for the employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question I asked the previous highway superintendent, and he said, "Oh, none of them want to live in Woodstock."
Right. I've heard, yeah, a couple people say that, and I'm like, really? But don't you want to be close to your job? I don't know.
Yeah, but
No,
they
I
may.
would I would caution against those. I mean, yes, there's people who have share those opinions, whether they're accurate or not.
Hmm.
Um, that's why I think talking to the employers and then getting a chance to talk to the workers themselves would be
It
really
may be
good.
that the workers in the highways department are reasonably well paid. They probably want to live somewhere where they can buy their own house and not have to deal with the sort of thing that we're proposing. I have a question for Anna. I was hoping maybe, given your position, we could hear more from you, but maybe that's a conflict and you don't want to say anything more than you have
Yeah,
already.
I mean, I think for me, like I'm happy to speak as like a private person, but in terms of like any questions we actually have, if we wanted to give this to, the business, I think I would probably want to give it to my general manager or ownership to fill out the questionnaire rather than me. Because I don't want that to be a conflict in any capacity. What I will say, just speaking as a private citizen, as myself, not on behalf of the company, is that most of the information I get in this capacity is from what I overhear just by talking to my to the employees. And it depends on the type of position. If I have an associate, like member of floor staff, I have a lot of people who have interest in living in Woodstock, but I don't know if it's a priority necessarily. Whereas management definitely is more interested in moving closer to town. And those are some discussions that I have had.
I this is again sort of a because I've had informal conversations with some business owners and actually some employees in businesses that I've known of over the years. Um, some employees are challenged with housing because they have dependents, they have children. So, in addition to housing for themselves, they may also need affordable and housing for children, and that then has other considerations in terms of proximity, um, schools, things like that. I'm blanking, Catherine, on her name, the former member of the housing committee who lived at Woodstock.
Oh, Tanisha.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was something that she talked about,
Mhm.
which I thought was really useful to know. Um, and she didn't work in Woodstock, and she did have kids in a few different schools, and that, and was not just able to afford anything, right? She needed some affordable living space. So um, I'm not quite sure how where this is going. Sorry, I'm maybe getting on a tangent.
Yeah, can I make a couple suggestions?
Yeah.
Um, one of the things to think about is just keeping it helicopter for a couple of minutes because,
Okay.
you know, we're getting caught in the weeds a little bit. The objective is that we want to build affordable housing in Woodstock. And in order for us to do that, we got to get the community to get behind us because eventually we're going to require rezoning. Would everyone agree with that? As sort of the helicopter?
I would say it may require. We don't know for sure, right?
May require rezoning.
Yeah.
So, take a page from Lizzie Vann's book. I mean,
Mhm.
she has that property on Lasher, you know, not really working the way that she needs it to work because she needs to change some of the programming on the site.
Right.
And one of the carrots is she threw in there was that in order to allow for workforce housing, she needs to rezone the property so that it's compatible from a zoning perspective in order to allow some of these functions on the site. And I think it's going pretty smoothly for her, you
Hmm.
know? It's so I think that we, A1, want to get the support of the community. We know that already. And especially we want to get the support of the business owners.
Right.
And because at the end of the day, the parking issue is going to affect the business owners, whether they understand it or not. And so getting their support is going to be really important for our objectives in the long run. So do we really need to, we can, create a list like John's saying of 15 questions and whittle it down to what's going to work in 20 minutes. But I think we generally have a sense of what our objective is, don't we?
But I think the objective could be agreed on, which is we want their support. But I think the way we structure this and the way we approach it and the way we can use what we find from it to gain broader support is the question now. Like, how do we do this in a way that maximizes our chance of one other thing I would say just before I finish that thought was the second thing we want to do is inform the process as best we can. So I think one thing we haven't talked about, but what kind of housing is in need? Is it really all one studio bedrooms and one bedrooms, or is it seniors, or is it so that might come out of this? But I feel like the way we structure this will help determine whether we're taken seriously, that we're being heard, that we're asking the questions that they think we should be asking, and that that's going to be integral to getting the support. I don't think just showing up and talking is going to do that. So I think that even if we agree on that as a goal, we have to figure out how to do it.
Agreed.
I think what Gregory just said, though, I think what both you're saying is really useful to kind of frame it at the outset, saying, why are we doing this? Why are we talking to you? And I mean, I don't see any reason not to share. We've been doing this for a while. We want to reach out to the business community. We're looking to create affordable housing in the community. We've been doing a lot of work. We have some directions. We want to get your input, right? And we want to find out what the needs are of the people that work with you.
Absolutely.
So kind of just almost like encapsulate it that way, start it. I'm just thinking if I'm a business person sitting there
Yeah.
and listening,
Well, Deborah, in terms of what you're saying, then in terms of like how to word a question, I know under hiring and retention, we've got did that experience give you any ideas about the types of affordable housing that's most important? What if we reworded that? And I know we want to ask direct questions, but if we ask something like, in conversations with your employees, what needs have they expressed to you in terms of housing? I know that that is a little more open-ended, but that does leave space for any type of answer in terms of what that need might be. I don't know if that's too vague, for what we're looking for, but that might be a way to approach that.
yeah, I think that has value because that might provide the opportunity. Well, my employee has kids they have to pick up from school or whatever. I don't mean to focus just on the parents, but I do know that that's, you know,
Mhm.
But
and
uh,
also,
Anna,
also,
I think what you're saying is maybe if you're talking about their employees, then you start off with, I can type really, I promise, that you can start off with a more general question about what their needs are. Is this,
Mhm.
and then you can segue into specific issues of housing if they haven't mentioned any. And how fine grained that gets, we can think about, but you know, affordability, right, is an issue that could have come up. Proximity to town is another issue you guys have raised. Size, adequate for their family size. Is this the spirit of, I'm trying to capture the spirit of what we've been talking about and not impose anything here. So, um,
I think it's good what the specifics of that are important in terms of what do they think. I think it's going to probably come more from the employees. What are they thinking in order for them to be closer to work in Woodstock? What kind of housing would work for them? I mean, I could see that just like you'd see in Kingston. I mean, I could see, six people sharing a four-bedroom unit, with communal space. I mean, we haven't even thought of things like that.
yeah.
Right, Anna?
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly depends on cost. I think just speaking for myself, I mean, my roommate and I right now are sharing a 500 square foot apartment on Tinker Street. That's $1,800 a month, not including utilities. And so, even though we're working on affordable housing right now, depending on what that means or what that looks like, I think the idea of having three or four people living together is a very real possibility. If people can afford to live by themselves, would they choose to do that? More than likely, probably. But it depends on cost.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of difficulties. We're trying to imagine so many different outcomes. Um, I'm wondering if we should just put together the questions. We should do a test run. Say, may take them to six business owners, say representative owners, and see, friendly ones who are willing to spend the time to talk to us before we take this to everybody and see what their responses are. And then maybe we could refine or simplify our questions.
I mean, I think to pilot it in that way is crucial. I think it's a really important idea. But I don't think we should be thinking about it as going with a survey. I think we should be thinking about it as piloting a conversation that we want to open up with them and make them feel like they have an opportunity to say what their concerns are while we maybe slip in some, you know, 1 to 7 questions that end up in data. But I think we should see if we can come up with a way of approaching these conversations, and then absolutely, I would pilot it on Anna. It wouldn't count, right? But what would she say? I don't know if that would be any helpful, but we probably all have a friend or two who works in town that we could ask these questions of in a way that was more pilotish than final version. And then we could reconvene and decide what we need to adjust.
It sounds to me as if Anna is paying Manhattan prices. I mean, that doesn't sound very affordable in terms of what it offers.
I,
So I'm wondering whether you think it's more likely that younger people would want to live close to their jobs. Maybe people who work in night occupations, like at restaurants and bars and stuff, would be more likely. I really don't know. I can't
so,
get.
so George, to what you're saying though, and this gets to the types of businesses, I think you hit on something. Businesses that function operate into the evening have a different type of uh, staff need, which may relate to what kind of housing they need, than people who work at House or who work at Sunfrost or that are daytime, right, businesses. So I think Uh, so I think, and I don't know if we have this, we might, whether it's in a survey or when we talk to them, but just, what type of business they are, what their hours of operation are, because those absolutely affect what their staff housing needs are.
Let's see.
And also, we want to make sure that we've covered the different types of businesses in town.
I think there's sort of two categories here, and one is how do we structure the conversation part of it, and the other is what concrete data do we want to collect? And I would put that in the concrete data stuff, and that's I think a lot of um, how many employees do you have? Where do they live? This is an abstract question about turnover. This is an abstract question about parking, but some of these are more survey, factual questions.
What
Um,
kind of business do you have? What are hours of operation?
so we could think of that list
Yeah. Okay.
and how it could be. But let's try to think about before doing that sort of in terms of the employees, do you think this is a good enough screen that you see right now in terms of what we want to ask them about specifically that's we're going to get related to housing? Are there any issues we want them to be able to talk about that are missing here?
So is that first question, are we really open to anything non-housing? Like, I don't know, like, are we asking if employees have needs for benefits, stability, or, I mean, obviously we're trying to get around to housing, but are we thinking we'll get a bunch of other responses for that one?
I mean, I don't know if this is the place to do it, but my, again, just approach to interviewing is you don't usually want to go right into the most important things to you on an interview. You want to give them some more open-ended questions to sort of get relaxed and try to feel like they can say whatever they want before you get too precise. And this might be a nice way of doing that. Um, but I do feel like if you ask this question just because you're interested in housing and it says in conversations with employees, what needs are they expressed? If no one says anything about housing, that's information, right? And so you could follow up and say, are there specific issues of housing that you miss? But if people are talking about something else, that's kind of interesting.
I do think, John, I think you might have gotten rid of it on the screen right now, but in the original document you sent, you had the question, can you think of examples in your business of cases where the cost of housing has affected hiring or retention of workers in your business? And I think maybe we could reword that to say, like, as an employer, has the lack of housing impacted your ROI or turnover rate
Yeah.
or something along those lines, if that's the kind of information you're looking for.
So then you want to go to the end, right, and say, how do you want to use this, as Gregory put it, to advance our cause? And how do you then want to present this to the community? And to me, the importance of asking for examples is it gets you a bit more concrete information. I think abstract questions are hard for people to deal with.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And so on these things, in specific as housing, you could say, have issues of affordability come up? Can you give me specific examples? Is proximity of town important? Have any employees raised this with you? You can always try to make it more concrete, but
Sure. Well, I think that the reason I bring that question back up is because I do think that when we talk about from a business perspective, turnover rate, right? Like turnover or high turnover for a business is not lucrative. I mean, and I'll speak from personal experience, when you have an employee who comes in and they can't maintain working for you because they have transportation issues or because there's affordability issues in the area, the business loses a lot of money depending on how much time you're putting into onboarding, training. Each business in town is going to be different. There may be businesses in town where maybe their onboarding process is not very involved, in which case it might not be as much money. But from a business perspective, in terms of how healthy the businesses in our town are and what we're doing like economically for the town from that perspective, if you don't have affordable housing and you don't have places where people can live, and that's leading to a high turnover rate or low ROI, that's not good for business. And so that's less focused on the human need, more focused on the business need. I don't know if that's the direction we necessarily want to go in, but I do think it's important information if we're going to talk about that in any capacity.
I mean, I think it's a crucial direction to go in personally, that we're
Yeah,
trying to understand the struggles they faced in running a business in town.
Yeah.
sure.
Could we phrase it as a a yes no question, like in the last year, has a lack of affordable housing affected your ability to retain staff? And if they have an example like, oh, my employee had to quit because they lived too far away or couldn't make it in, then that would be a yes.
Bingo.
Um,
You nailed it.
and then I think from then on, we could say something, like, okay, 75% of the business we spoke to said that in the last year, lack of close and affordable housing affected turnover, then that would be something we could report on. So
So
I
in
don't
the
know.
last year,
And the last year has,
the issue of housing costs affected your ability to hire or retain an employee.
I would just
yeah,
say affected your turnover rate is what I would say. I mean, unless we want to have it be open-ended towards like hiring also, but
I would, I think both is good.
yeah,
I mean,
Me
I
too,
think
because I've talked to
turnover,
town people that say they can't hire.
yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah.
would do both because I think
Their
they're both
okay.
relevant
ability to hire
or retain.
or your turnover rate.
But
Hire,
turnover can be,
hire or retain.
I guess, turnover can mean two things in a retail context. Retention,
I was going to say retention
Yeah,
too.
hire or retain employees, maybe.
yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think Rebecca's suggestion, that's a very good opening, direct question,
Mm.
but not threatening question.
Sure.
On my other screen, I still have open John's very useful PDF document. And one thing occurred to me is to take parking out of this altogether for now. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm with you, George, on that.
Can before we get into the parking though, can we just fine tune this question on housing a little bit more?
Sure.
Because the issue probably they wouldn't really maybe get, we're saying, has the issue of housing affected your ability to hire, retain employees? So I was in Stewart's today when the snow was coming down, and and they were down to like one employee, and I asked the person behind the counter, I said, how are you getting home after this?
Mm.
And she said, well, fortunately, I'm only in Port Ewan, but
Wow.
some people had to leave because they live further away.
Hmm.
So the thing is that it's an issue of housing, but it's also an issue of distance.
Right.
Yeah.
They so that phrasing and so that covers that, I think is important.
Are
So
we kind
maybe
of getting
Why don't we
close
just say the
here?
issue of local housing or locally available
affordable,
housing?
affordable local housing.
And the
Affordable local housing
local,
affected
I
your
think, would
ability.
help. Yes, I think that would help.
Well, so here I'm hearing we want to revise this a little bit. So this is pretty abstract right now.
I
Um,
actually think it's pretty concrete. Affordable, proximity to town. I mean, that's whether it's, I don't know. That to me, that
Remember that these are like our guideposts while we're going through the interviews, the points we want to ask them about, but it's not
right,
like a survey right now. It's
right.
so I think
And well, yeah. And also in addition to affordability, there's just availability, right? Like if you are someone who just wants a studio
Mm.
apartment or a one bedroom or a two bedroom that you share, maybe there's if there are any on the market, maybe that's an issue. Not only are they maybe not affordable, but there's just not a stock of that kind of
The
housing that you would
availability.
Yeah, no,
request.
that's absolutely true, Rebecca. Yeah.
But I think just in terms of a clean sentence, in the last year, has the issue of local housing affected your ability to hire or retain employees? You kind of cover both things in that. Yeah.
and then they might say no because our employees live in Port Ewan, right? Or something like that. But then that'll
Yeah.
start the conversation and you can
Well, then maybe it's not an issue for them.
or you can say, well, do they wish they lived in town, and was the problem, are they coming from Port Ewan because it's too expensive here or because there's nothing available? So I think that takes a little agility in the interview to kind of probe something like that.
Yeah.
Sure. I think that's true.
John, I really respect your expertise and research. It's not mine, but I have to tell you, I just don't understand the first question. To me, it's so vague and so general. I'm just not sure. If somebody asked me that, I'd go, well, what do you mean needs? Their needs for money or their needs for housing, their needs for childcare. I mean, food. I don't know
Yeah,
how that
no,
to
don't defer to
follow.
me at all,
For me,
please.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Don't defer to me. I say a lot of dumb things. So
No, I'm not not saying it's
Oh,
dumb. I just
oh,
don't
but this was the
understand
thing.
it.
So this was a way that I think Anna suggested this, or someone else, as a way to start
I
the
did, yeah.
conversation.
Oh, okay, just to open the conversation.
And I don't know if we need it or not.
I think I would go with what Gregory mentioned before of, or he and I were back and forth a little bit, but just kind of do a thumbnail about to kind of open up the conversation because we're coming from the housing committee, right? That's the issue we're looking at. So that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
Let's just bracket this for a minute, this employee's questions, and put it, because what you just said, Deborah, really links to how you start the interview.
Right.
And this is too much on this slide, but I put a lot of ideas on how you get there and stuff. But the basic idea was to ask them, if you look here, this is the idea of asking them something open-ended, non-threatening, not specifically rated what we're due, to just kind of ease the tension of what might be going on here. And so it's, how would you describe the current business climate in your town, in the town, or something to that effect.
Hmm.
And then you could transition to what's not on here. Well, what we're really interested in is, seeing housing as a piece of, what needs to happen to make the town be successful. Go over the bullet points from the presentation, talk to them about what we've been doing in this, informing them mode of what we're doing, and then transition to something like the next slide. So some softball question, transition to talk about our mission and what we've been doing and what we're up to, and then get into our questions about employees. I think that's the sort of thing that we might consider as an overall structure.
Yeah, maybe we can think a little bit more about that softball question because we could end up sort of asking an even more sensitive question, right? Like about, what are issues in your business? And they may not be willing to be totally candid on that. But if we are coming and couching it in housing and with the notion that we are trying to help solve a problem here, we want businesses to thrive, and we recognize that there is a problem, a perceived problem, that employees, need more affordable housing to live here so that they can be hired.
I think what you
Hopefully,
just said, Rebecca, is right on point. I'm glad we're recording it. There's a lot of good stuff coming in this.
So the opening of the interview, I think,
Yeah.
that was perfect too, was brief statement of our mission,
Yeah.
housing connection to business success. Is that what you said? I mean, to kind of make that link about that's one reason we care about talking to them.
sure, yeah, because we want Woodstock to thrive, and we want our businesses to do well, and
I think
we
it's
know that
business
worker.
and community success. I think it's
Yeah,
both.
that's better.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could maybe go with the bullet points. My feeling is we should give them materials in advance, the report or whatever, but bullet points just to tell them because they probably won't read it, and bullet points that we take with them, and maybe even hand them a sheet of what we're up to, basically through stage 2. And then we could go to the employee question immediately. Does that seem?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think it's not, I think it's generally known, maybe anecdotally, that there have been issues about people who work in town finding housing, right? And so, and that can affect businesses. Maybe not, as George said, maybe not everybody wants to live in Woodstock. That's, but this, we want to segue into that issue soon because that's what we're doing. And we recognize and appreciate the effect it has on the community as a whole and the business success. Right? Um,
So, I mean, I think these 2 slides with some filling out get us pretty close to much of what we're doing without raising the parking issue yet. We need to kind of have a better fleshing out of how we want to open this. You know, Deborah just had some ideas about hiring. We want to have a diverse community. We have our arguments for why affordable housing is important that we could, you know, include here.
We
But
could also include, we can go back to the playbook from HRNA and some of the statistics that they had and just present those like this is the environment now that we know of. And that could be another softball question. We could present that and say, is this, do you think this is reflective of the housing situation in Woodstock? Is this aligned with your experience even? But at the very least, we could present some of those statistics that we have had in our other materials.
That's a good idea. Don't have to reinvent every wheel.
So we start a conversation about the problem basically and how we're trying to fit into the solution. And then we update them on what we're have done and are doing. And then we could ask them for reactions to where we stand, if they have any, right?
Right, if they even know.
Well,
You
we've
mean
just
to
told them
the,
in the bullet points sort of what was in
Right,
the report
right.
and like
That's true.
a
Right.
1 minute version of it. We
Yep.
had 3 lots. We're down to these two.
Yep.
One is the, town lot and one is whatever. And the next phase is this. And we're doing this community outreach program. We're doing this webinar and other things. And you try to summarize it for them and ask them, how they react to this. Does that make sense? Or,
Mhm.
and then
I
we get
think we
into,
should expect to hear about parking though, right? At this point.
I don't think you should use the phrase to where we stand. It sounds as if like we've made
Yeah.
up our minds about something.
yeah, I can change that. I just mean where we are in the process,
Right.
Mm.
not what our opinions are, but where we are in the process.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think this is an opportunity to, you're right, to update them on the process. I mean, they're important stakeholders and they maybe don't have all the time to attend all the meetings and read the recap. So I think it's a great opportunity to give them a quick recap of what we're doing and make sure they understand where we are.
Right. And we need to make sure that we get their contact info, really basic thing, because most of them probably aren't even on our newsletter distro. So,
Yeah, I mean, we may want to by the end of the conversation. It's just, kind of encourage them or say, why, because a lot of people don't really think about the newsletter and what it could provide,
Mm.
oh, another email, whatever. I know those are the conversations I had at the library fair, which was
Mm,
interesting.
that's true. Yeah, they might not want it, but there
But
has to be a way that for them to stay up to date on this process.
but they're part of, I think, somehow saying that they can help direct
Mm.
solutions, direct some of these ideas and possibilities because they are such an integral part of how this community functions. And um, so this is important. And I think letting them know that and then staying in touch with them is important. And a way to
Right.
do that is through the newsletter.
I
A
mean,
way.
I understand not everyone may want to sign up for the newsletter, but we could still at least collect their contact information with the understanding that, we'd like to stay in touch with you. We are looking for, keeping in touch with businesses and having input. And, we may want to reach out to businesses or BCC a few just with specific items. So we could at least see if they're willing to share that with us just so that we can stay in touch.
And also so that they can help us spread the word about our community meetings among their employees
That's a really good
and their
point.
customers. So I think that's a really
Yeah.
important reason to create like a network of information.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like to come back to the substance a little bit of what we're going to talk to them about, that these bullet points have to include the parking study and the fact that we're proposing to build or to study building on the lot. So I think we have to ask them questions about parking. I think to evade that um, probably won't be possible after we go through the facts, but also is one of the things people are most important about. And to say we consulted the community but didn't ask them about parking is, I
Right.
feel like, not going to work.
Well, wouldn't it be more effective to wait for them to bring it up because we have a lot of responses about parking already that we can give them.
So, um, I mean, I guess I have two reactions to that. And one is there's some information I'd kind of like to get about parking. Some of it's on the screen now because a lot of these businesses actually have their own private spaces. I mean, even the ones in town. But I don't think we understand it. But I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to think through what's the best way to convey that we feel like we can do this without harming the parking situation?
Uh, well, I think what you just said is that integrating parking with these various housing solutions is part of, is among our criteria, right?
So that puts it as, what are the main bullet points? I mean, there are two lots and what happens next, right? There's the webinar. There's the parking study. What are the important points that we want to?
What about the community meeting? Wouldn't we want them to support that event?
Definitely.
We should also at some point figure out when that's going to be.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, so we have an opportunity here for some call to action of here's some events and information sessions coming up that we want you to be aware of that you can attend or watch afterwards if they're recorded. Um,
I think like we're going to have bullet points, which I think should be a flyer of some kind, not the whole report. It'd be good to have a flyer of what's coming up that we could just hand them at the end of the discussion and say, here, stay in touch. This is what's happening.
maybe like a
We
little.
could give them a one pager, even if it was
Yeah,
cited.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Would
well,
be really
Fisher's working on one for the webinar, and I was thinking we could use the reverse side for other things that we're doing. So if we want to save paper.
Good idea.
Yep.
I think we only need about 40 sheets of paper if we get 40 interviews. So
But we
I'll
want to put those
be happy to
flyers
donate the
everywhere.
response.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a logistic I think that we have to worry about. But let's try to get through. Gregory's saying maybe we don't need to, we have these employee related questions that are going to link to housing. I think we can probably get rid of this now. Is that true if we have a different way of segueing into this?
Yeah, I think so.
Anna, what are your thoughts? Is that capturing something we're missing that will be helpful here?
Or maybe put that at the end.
I mean, I think if we're specifically asking about needs in terms of like distance, housing, if we're asking those questions in other ways, I think that that's fine, because really what we want to know is, how long does it take you to get to work? Is that like a impediment for you continuing to work there? Um, that sort of stuff. So I think that's fine.
What if here we just told them that we're going to study these two lots further. We told them about the webinar. We told them about the community meeting, get their reactions. And then after we talk to them about the relationship of the housing problem to their employees, we start the parking issue with what we've learned about parking, what we're hoping to do about it in terms of relining and finding more spots and preserving some of Mountain View so
That's
that there's no cost, and then getting their reactions.
hmm. I I don't want to be. I'm a little cautious about this parking issue because I think there's a lot of people in town, whether may not be business owners, but who have misconceptions about parking and um, and we don't really have as a town like an overall um, like a good parking study for the town. You know, you mentioned that some businesses have private lot spots, some are adjacent to public, so it's confusing to people. Um, we always hear that there isn't enough parking, but then some of the studies that you've done and that we have kind of show that there are definitely times of the year when there's lots of parking. People just don't know about it. So I'm just wondering the best way to approach the parking issue. What is it we want as a business owner for them to tell us, and also what do you think they would want to know about parking as it relates to housing? I guess those are the questions that come into my head. Um, like they might, you know. Yeah.
I guess there's two issues I think we should talk about, and one is how do we present what we know about parking and what we are hoping to accomplish, and what do we want to get them to respond to? And
Well, I think that what we know about parking from what you've evaluated and what the Fisher has evaluated is very helpful, right? To having that conversation and to actually being able to provide um, um, factual information on what the parking situation is and what would happen if housing were created.
Are
so
we
this,
really equipped to do that though at this stage? I mean, isn't this more about a fact gathering operation than a information sharing operation? Isn't it us saying, what are your needs? And have you heard any complaints about parking from your
Oh,
customers or employees?
that might be a better thing. You might be right. Sorry. I retract.
Because I know there's this whole complete streets thing going on about getting rid of parking spots
Which
on
I,
Tinker Street and building the sidewalk. And that's just not, I don't want to be involved in that discussion. I'd rather just hear what their needs are and then take it to the greater scope of things, maybe the community meeting. I don't know.
I agree with you, Sabina and Gregory. Um, I think this is just getting into too much detail, which is not
okay,
part of our central focus, which is, do you need us to find more housing for your employees?
right.
I mean,
but we can't
it
ignore
gets,
that we're
it gets,
proposing to close down half, and that I agree, I think.
but we're going to have a webinar
Right.
where we can go into more detail on this stuff. I mean, we're talking about a
No, we're
20
not. We're
minute
not going to talk about parking at the webinar. I think my concern and my reaction right now is you heard that last sentence, the last meeting we were at. Parking is what people are so worried about in the Mountain View lot. And so I'm not sure I have the right answer to it, but I can't imagine that we can't address it one way or the other. And so I will repeat what I said a little bit ago, which is given the reaction we've gotten informally and at that meeting to concerns about parking, not to have a strategy to deal with it in this consultation process, I think um, is a mistake. And so what that strategy should be, I'm much less clear about, but I feel like it's not something that we should pretend isn't central to what we're doing here. We're proposing taking away part of the parking, which is why we did the study, and people really react negatively to that. And so, how can these consultations interact with that issue?
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and I don't think we're disagreeing, is that maybe our job in these conversations is to gather more information. Maybe it's not to provide information about a future for parking. Like I don't feel equipped to talk about the parking study you did. I would rather you did that. But I'm happy to say how much parking are you missing and what do your employees need? What is your business not being provided? And then we can add that to the mix.
So my
For
screen
me,
is
it's
still
or
sharing.
maybe I'm wrong.
Like, isn't this the question you want
Yeah,
asked?
I think that's great. Yep.
I mean, if we're going to tell them that sorry, if we're going to tell them that Mountain View is one of our options, then they're going to bring up parking anyway, and then we have the answers to their questions, or some of the answers may be. I mean, it's very complicated. Complete Streets is really kind of their territory. I guess we're going to have to liaise with them at some point. Um, each business in town is required to provide customer and employee parking. Half of them, of course, can't. And I still want to find out how much businesses are paying the town
Mm.
in lieu of providing those parking lots. I mean, that's part of our equation.
But I don't feel like that's part of what we need to worry about here.
No, no, I agree totally. That's why I'm saying basically, I think we should leave the parking as simply as we possibly can. Maybe we just ask one question.
Right.
Do your
See, I
employees
think
and
that the
customers have a problem parking?
I think that's
yeah.
right, George.
What we're saying here is John, is that we're not going to initiate questions about parking with the business owners, but we have to be prepared for the anticipated questions they're going to ask us.
So I think there's two dimensions based on the um, two dimensions to the parking problem based on what's her name said, Irena, parking for employees and parking for customers. Um, I think they're concerned there we could ask about both potentially, or we could just leave it as abstract as we want. Do
Well,
you feel
there's also the issue of the efficiency of the parking that we have. And that's where I think you're getting into more detail down the road that we're really not ready, right? But we want to, obviously, we're thinking about those things. And so their input is really helpful.
Well, I think in terms of combining what John is saying with what Sabina was saying, we've got the question, um, do you feel public parking on streets and in lots meets the needs of your business? If we want to be specific about like what needs we're asking for, I think that's fine. But I mean, that is the way of asking the question of,
Yeah.
how is that going for them? Do their employees need more or less? Do their employees have issues? Is it impacting their business? And those are the sorts of answers we want. So to me, that seems like the right question to ask.
So is it maybe, do you have sufficient parking for your employees? Do you have sufficient parking for your customers? And maybe if not, is there a seasonality, or do we want to get into more about like when or why they may have parking shortages?
Says, what is this based on? Is kind of maybe the better way to say it rather than try and lead them in, and they could tell you, oh, it's season or it's this or it's that. You know what I mean? Because business owners are probably pretty savvy about that as it relates to their business versus the public at large and even, well, it is a bigger discussion. And I think we shouldn't go down that road too far because I think it has a lot of other complexities to it, including other philosophies of parking and streets.
I mean, there isn't enough parking in Woodstock compared to what other towns would have. I mean, if I'm driving down the street, that's not me. And
I'm sorry.
whether or not I stop at the Mountain View Pizza place is going to be dependent
Michael?
on whether or not I see
Michael?
any spots. So I think the feeling is we don't really have a lot of parking in Woodstock. You got to really look for parking. So, it's kind of like I really doubt that any business owner is going to say there's enough parking in Woodstock.
Have you ever tried to park in Saugerties?
Uh,
yes,
Terrible. I mean, the parking is terrible in Saugerties. There's one little lot.
it is close to the library though.
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
I kind of think that we have three slides right now that cover most of what we want in terms of the broad, whoops. So we have this brief opening of our interview idea where we talk about our mission and talk about with bullet point handout where we are in the process and get people's reaction to that. We have some general but with specific dimension questions about the effect of housing on their ability to hire and retain employees. We have a general question about the effect of parking on their business, and that's sort of it. Does that seem like we're the kind of close to a first draft here?
I think so. I think this is really good work.
And then we could ask the question, do we want to collect data while we do this? Do we want to have 5 or 6 questions where they can fill it out right there while or we can do it for them, to bring home with us? That could become data, 1 to 7, affordability is a problem kind of thing. Is that worth doing, or do we want to imagine the ultimate report really is we're listening and these are what we're hearing and the problems we got to address based on what we're hearing?
I feel like in the beginning, I know I said survey, but I feel like this conversation is more useful, and that later in the process, if we want more information, now that we have these relationships, we could go back and say, would you mind answering these dozen questions for us? If we need more specific, like how many employees do you have? How many of them live in Woodstock? How many? But for me, right now, this is a really good beginning. That's my gut. And it might be too much to do a survey and a conversation.
I wonder if some of those survey questions are sort of the basis for the conversational questions, if we can sort of do it at the same time or get some, 3 or 4 data points that we could kind of include or have at the aggregate level. And Deborah, I think you're talking about, you're muted. Maybe we can kind of come to a middle ground, like have 3 or 4 like Likert scale yes no questions that then would lead pretty well into the conversational questions.
We had something there, and it was like, the type of business you have, the number of employees, just very basic stuff.
Hours of operation.
Hours of operation. If that may be enough,
So here's some that I had written down and we can decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the second or third, you could combine hiring or retention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about for the sake of efficiency, I would be willing to try to write a draft we could circulate by email that would send you guys this document again, just with those first 3 slides with some suggested survey questions sprinkled in. People can think about whether it's worth doing them or how to ask them better. And does that make any sense?
Could you do it in a Google Doc that we could make suggestions or something? Or
Yeah,
I don't know.
that would be a good idea.
But
Does a Google Doc have a sort of PowerPoint-ish
yeah.
version?
Yeah, there's
Yes,
Google
they do.
Slides.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess, does it need to be in a slide?
I just
You think in
how I
slides?
prepare notes. So
Sure.
um,
Yeah,
that's-
there's slides. Or I mean, you can also use the document that I sent around and just sort of rework it or whatever works. But I think a Google Doc could be useful. I think a Google Doc is a little easier to show edits. Like if you're doing it in the editing mode, you can kind of track changes.
so I'm happy to throw this into a Google Doc. And do you guys prefer just like a Word doc rather than a PowerPoint type doc? Is that the preference, or you don't care? Or?
I think a Word doc might be easier at this point for me personally, but I mean, I can work with a PowerPoint also or a Google slide.
It's totally the same for me. So just let me
I think a Google Doc for commenting and editing purposes maybe easiest.
Okay. So I'll create a Google Doc, and the only difference between it and what we have here, maybe I'll try to put a little more flesh on some of these, but is that I'll add some potential, like Rebecca said, Likert type scale questions, and we can think about whether they're the right ones, how to improve them, don't need them after we see them, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you can make also do comments on the side if you wanted to also.
Yeah,
And
great.
Gregory, I thought your comment at the very beginning, let's take a step back here and get in the helicopter.
Yes.
It's evolving. I think that's a crucial point. And the
Well, I
question,
think that's what we're doing here, all coming together. Because ultimately, if we survey the business owners, we survey the employees, we survey people who are 55 plus that want to stay in the community, we might find out at the end of the day that we need 500 units, and there's a range of pricing, either to buy or to rent. And even though we're only doing these 2 pilot projects now, it's going to be great information that we can use in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that comment, though, makes it seem important to have some actual data come out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
not just the narrative.
So I
Okay.
think we accomplished a lot tonight. Thank you.
Did anyone have a chance to look at the spreadsheet of businesses
I
and
added a couple of names.
Yeah.
okay, but we were also
Yeah,
asking
I
you
took a very
to,
brief look, but
okay, we were also asking you to think about who would you like to talk to?
Well,
And I know we're not there yet, but we may not have another meeting till January.
but let's think about the pilot idea, because one thing we might do right
Okay.
now is say, how many, does everyone do one? Is that the idea? Or how would the test run go? What do you guys think?
How many are we?
For 8.
Or 8. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, and when do we want to do them? I wrote my name down to on a few people that I know and felt comfortable doing that. That might be good part of, you know, a pilot, just because, again, this idea of diversity, like different types of businesses, and I saw various people's names on others. So if everybody did 2, is that too many?
For the pilot or for the whole?
For the pilot.
I think for the pilot, that's too many. That'd be
That's
6.
too many.
Yeah.
One each.
Or even, do we think everyone should be participating in the pilot? I don't know.
I think it's what people want, I guess.
And then a question I have also is, do we pilot with people we know or people we don't know? You know, which would give you better information about how it's working?
I'd say initially pilot with people we know, because they probably be more open and give us a better idea where to go next.
It's a warmer audience. We can get more candid feedback on the questions, and maybe as business owners, what do you think they think other business owners would be willing to share?
Well, let's think about the businesses. There's bigger businesses and smaller businesses, and I think the pilot should include both. Um, Bigger business was like someone could maybe do one of the hardware stores or one of the bigger restaurants. I don't know. What do you guys think for a big business for the pilot?
Yeah, I would say 2 of the restaurants housed as a hardware store. Sunflower must be about the biggest business in town.
What might be the biggest?
Sunflower.
Sunflower, yeah. Sunflower is kind of unique here though, because they have their own huge parking lot. So,
well, I
Housing.
mean, I will say that
Housing.
our employee parking is not very significant. So I will say that, but
And it might be interesting to know if they're like, well, yeah, on busy days, the parking's all filled up and it's not customers and it's an issue for them, right? So it might be
yeah.
interesting for businesses whose parking is sort of borrowed on certain times and times of the year to hear from them about that. Maybe CVS is another one. I know that's probably a go-to parking lot for a lot of people in town.
I would say Bread Alone is a pretty big business. I know they're not all at the counter, but there's always a million people working there and the lines out the door.
well, let's pick 2 big ones. Does anyone have any instinct of which 2?
Um,
Well, we're
I
keeping
think
some.
bread
well,
alone.
what type of business are we talking about right now?
Well, I think I'm just thinking about it, a number of employees, but you're right. There's also that mention we should maybe have a hardware store and a restaurant if we're going to do 2.
Yeah.
Well, I think bread alone for sure.
Bread alone.
But bread alone and housed.
Yeah.
Well, we spoke with House last year, and I'm happy to follow up with Jody. She came to one of our listening sessions last year. Well, I already have a really good idea of her employee situation, but I suppose it doesn't hurt to have another conversation.
What about Colony or Garden Cafe?
I don't think there is, well, Colony might be.
I think Colony, we need to have a strategy because this will be a very crucial conversation.
Sure.
What about doing Sylvia's in the first round? Isn't that pretty big?
Same thing,
I mean,
crucial
they're
conversation.
both just nighttime businesses, although Sylvia's is building a hotel. but I just saw Gemmel is on the market for
Yeah.
sale.
Oh,
The owners
Who's
of
on the
Sylvia
market?
also have
Surprising.
at least one other restaurant in town too, right?
Who's on
Maybe
the
we
Yeah,
don't
they have
want to
Good
do the
Night and
crucial
Sylvia's, and
restaurant.
they're opening a hotel.
Maybe we don't want to do the crucial businesses in the
that's
pilot.
what
Maybe
I'm
we
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wouldn't do that
yeah.
in the pilot.
So someone else come up with a strategy for the pilot because mine was bad.
Mm.
What about Oriole 9?
Oriole 9 would be a good one.
Yeah.
Well, what if
And
we
also,
start with people say, I'll talk to Lily, or I'll
Yeah.
talk to Vince.
I did speak with Lily last week, and I'd be happy to go through this again with her. Um,
Sorry,
she's
that Lily?
Lily, yes.
At
from
I
the
had a meeting with her last week.
station.
station
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
curiosity.
no,
station.
they have plenty of parking, but I don't know about how many employees they have.
They have
You know,
9
it's a
employees.
Quite a few.
Nine.
different kind of business, but I'd be happy to talk to the director of the Woodstock Film Festival, who I know quite well. They have a
Hmm.
year-round staff,
That's a
Hmm.
great idea.
probably a half dozen people.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I know two very new owners downtown. The Corinna, who I don't even know the name of her shop, but it used to be the tea shop out on 218. She opened up right in the middle of town. And then
Oh
the
yeah,
person who has the hemp store.
Hmm.
it's pot now.
Okay.
Yes. So I know both of them pretty well, and I could do one of those. They're very small, quite new businesses. If
Hmm.
But do they have many employees?
Well, I'm
um,
just thinking
no,
most. I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
they're small businesses, but I think a lot of the businesses in town are like this, so they should be part of our investigation.
Hmm. That's
Maybe.
Um,
fine.
I
I
also know Vince at the other hardware store a bit.
I know him pretty well too.
Okay.
I was also going to say David at Woodstock Wine and Liquor. I know him pretty well, and his employees. I've actually talked to them
Well,
about.
Deborah, do you want to do a pilot? Because then you can pick one. This is how
Yeah.
we're,
Oh,
Deborah,
okay. Yeah.
pick
Oh,
one.
okay. Woodstock Wine and Liquor. I'll do
All
that.
right.
Okay. I was going to volunteer for that. I
Oh,
know, I know
George,
them very
George, you
well.
get to be the volunteer for the next. What else would you, which one would you want to do, George?
It's okay. Just kidding.
oh.
George, which one would you like to do?
Well, I'm not sure how many are on the list anymore. We were talking about 6 or 8 for a pilot.
No, we've only done, we don't know how many we're going to do, but right now we have one. Deborah's going to talk to the wine store. So do you want to
Oh,
do one?
no, Catherine said she would do
Uh,
Oriole 9.
No,
Oriole
but
Nine.
we all listed a whole bunch and we talked and I listed three and you listed one or two. So now we're going to try to make a real list.
But
So
Okay.
Catherine's doing house because she knows them.
no, I'm going to
I
go
was,
person by person because we're just all throwing out ideas. George, would you like to do one?
Um, it depends. I mean, it depends who they are, who it
Or
is.
can you think of one you would like to do?
I think we should have a list first of the ones we want to approach. I mean, I could do Good Night or one of those two.
Well,
I mean,
we're doing just
that,
the
that,
pilot. We're trying to learn about how to do this right. And so we're going to try to do a few and then see how it goes and see if we need to adjust our strategy. And so,
in principle, I know Craig, but not particularly well. Good Night, Sylvia.
Oh.
Jamela, they're getting rid of, I guess.
um, Sabina, which one would you want to do?
Well, I said I'd do the film festival if you want me to, unless you think it's too soon. But I'd be happy to do that as a pilot. I've worked there. I know them.
Um,
This is
Gregory,
a
you have,
quiet time of year for them, but I can certainly have a conversation with Mira.
Gregory.
I had written down Woodstock Way, the hotel, and Stewart's on 28, which is in Woodstock, by the way.
Let's do Woodstock Way.
Okay.
We have three. Um, George, should we do Sylvia's now? That's kind of a maybe we should save
I
that
think
one.
we should save that one.
Okay.
Um,
And we're going to save Colony.
What about bread alone? Should we
yes.
said bread alone?
No, but let's think about people. Rebecca, do you have one that you know somewhere what you would like to do, or would you rather pass on the pilot round?
No, I mean there were two businesses that I have some connection to, but I don't know if they have employees, and maybe that doesn't matter. And then there was one of the churches that we thought would be helpful, maybe for this, but also just for like broad sort of community needs, that we talked about. So I wonder if it's worth doing that one.
As a pilot, the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the church right in town.
The Methodist
Square.
Church.
It's the Methodist Church on
downtown.
212, right?
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I would do the temple also. I just think they all have employees who are coming from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we're up to 4. Um, Anna, did you want to do one?
I would be willing to do either Alba's or Garden Cafe if Catherine's already doing Oriole 9.
I haven't said I'm doing anything yet.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Well,
let's have you do
yeah,
Albus because I think the
Okay.
more central ones that are really close to the par- I'm kind of thinking which ones do you want to pilot on and which ones do you want to make sure you have your act totally together before you do
sure.
it? And so maybe Albus would be a little bit more
Okay.
first round.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do Alba's.
So now we have 5. Catherine, do you want to do a
Sure. Should I go back to Lily and talk to her again at the station? Housed?
I think we should save Housed on this principle. That's a pretty big business right in the middle of
Or
town.
Yeah.
you could do
Well,
that
also it's
that Overlook Bakery is really small too.
Oh, I'm happy to do that one as well. I mean,
Oh, okay, let George do that one.
the bakery and the wine store might too.
Okay, so
When
George
I
will do Overlook Bakery.
know the people
Okay.
well. Yeah.
And I could do one of those really small new businesses that I mentioned. I pick Katrina or
And
Melissa.
Munishine was the place out in the
Yeah, Corinna is her name.
Is that on our list?
I don't even know the name of her new business.
Is the list in Google Drive or is it just that
Yeah.
email that George sent a long time ago?
No,
Is it in Drive?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
send you
great.
that email.
So
Great.
how about if the co-chairs sit out the pilots and we just wax back and put our feet up and say, "Oh, we'll weigh the wisdom of your work."
That sounds good.
I mean, I think that 6 is enough for piloting, and we're going to try to go through the thing that we're circulating and working on in the next few days, and use that to see if it works. And so we have to, get the bullet points done before we pilot anything. We're not just going to talk to people right now. We're trying to practice our data gathering strategy.
Yes.
But I have Deborah at the wine store, Georgia at Overlook Bakery, Sabine at the film festival. And if you think that's too big, Sabina, and you want to hold that off until after,
No, it's not. It's not big at all. It's big for 2 months of the year, but right now I think it's a good time.
Do
Gregory,
they have year-round employees?
They do.
Okay, good.
Right now, the screening for submissions starts any day now.
I see.
Rebecca has the Methodist Church, and Anna has Alba's. And Catherine and I can choose to do one if we decide, but I think 6 pilots will be enough.
Yeah.
And so in the next, hopefully tomorrow morning, I can send out a draft of this Google document for us to start working on. Does anyone want to work on the bullet point thing, the stuff you would want to hand them and say, this is where we are in the process?
Okay, could we possibly adapt some of the slides
Yeah.
from the presentation?
I just think, though, it should be something that summarizes where
Yeah.
we are in one piece of paper that we could actually
Okay.
physically give to them.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to work on that?
I spent so much time on that presentation. I don't know if I can do it again,
This is
honestly.
a really tough week and
know.
a half for me.
Yeah.
Boss is
I
leaving.
I might have some time next Saturday, but I don't think I'm gonna have time until next Saturday.
Okay, I'm going to take this as a no, and I'll mix this in with what I've done, and I'm just going to
Okay.
throw out the draft, and people can start responding to that, and
That sounds good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that'll be good, John.
Pertinent to that is what's the time frame for doing this pilot?
yeah.
After Christmas, presumably they're going to be so busy.
Yeah.
I think January, no?
January, yeah.
Early January if we can.
I mean, we
Early
could set them
January.
up now for early January, like we could make appointments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'll be going to London in early January, but that's okay.
Well, you're not doing one, so there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
the pilots are in early January, we're thinking. Okay, I was thinking maybe the pilots before early January, but that's probably fine too.
I think a lot of these
Yeah,
businesses
yeah.
are going to be busy, but
Yeah.
This isn't a time to, I, yeah.
Who is taking notes tonight?
Anna,
Yeah. Okay, I might interact with you about this thing I'm trying to write and try to make
Okay,
sure what people,
yeah.
if I missed anything that we're trying to do.
I
sure.
mean, depending on like when we need that by, I can help also to sort of aggregate the what we've done info sheet
I'll
for.
try to do the best I can tomorrow and Friday and then pass it off and people can start over
I
the.
think the information's in that presentation. You just have to figure out how to condense it.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm
that's
trying to
what,
think of something I might do off the top of my head. I'm thinking of
Oh,
something
okay.
pretty, pretty, blunt, not blunt, but,
Hmm.
sparse,
Really basic.
really basic,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
what stage one did. This is what
Right.
stage two,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Well, you can look at the deck for inspiration.
yeah, no, I definitely will.
Yeah. So are
Sorry to
you
get
done with
kind of curted.
this?
I kind of got to go in 3 minutes. So,
I know. I think we'll skip a couple things I had stuck on the agenda a couple when I was doing this a few weeks ago, and just quickly say that we have this really great developers panel lining up for January, and I need like 2 or 3 people who can work closely with me in January to help me get the word out on this.
Okay.
I really want attendance from, all the housing committees across Ulster County. I think we just need to send a lot of targeted emails I tried to reach out to all the stakeholders for our November 13th meeting. I probably sent like 25 emails, but it wasn't enough. And as one person, I can't send all these emails, so I need help with that. I'm also thinking we should write up a real press release for this thing and also include the community meeting in it that we're planning, hopefully for February or March. Try to like get a lot of bang for our buck, while we're pushing this out in January. So if I
Catherine,
could just get it,
I can help you send emails.
that would be great. Thank you.
Happy to do that. I'm a good
Great.
emailer. Happy to do it.
Good.
we're
Great.
also on listservs that we should try to get them to do it. I know there's this one for Hudson Valley Business that I get once a month or something.
Oh, really?
Opco
Okay.
has one. That organization that Steve runs has one. And if we could get them to do a little something, uh,
Right. Yeah. All these things take a lot of effort to get people to put it in their newsletter and et cetera, et cetera. And you can't just send out like a blanket email. You kind of have to tailor them. That's
Yeah.
why it took me so long.
well, if we're
So,
doing it after the new year, I can definitely help too.
okay.
And I can
Um,
look around at other like housing committees, especially ones that we've been in
Yeah, the ones that we've
together.
I don't know if I have any of that contact info, so we need to build out our stakeholder list a little bit and
I might
um
have
other
a
contact.
Rolodex that could be very useful here to us. You might have the different housing committee chair.
Ooh, Kai?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely involve Kai.
Hmm.
But
What
Kai seems kind of tired these days, so I don't want to
got
try
a
to
lot
use him
on
too
his
much.
plate. He's got
can
has like
somebody ask the
14.
library if we can use their email list?
Yes, somebody on this little task force is going to ask the library. Who would
You,
like to do that?
Catherine? Oh,
No, that's one of my point is I can't do everything.
no, no. I mean, I can jump in most time for most things.
Okay.
What if
I
I
mean,
don't
I
want
feel like with Ivy, it's more effective to have the two chairs of the committee almost send her a note about what other communities have done working with the library and that we'd really like to partner with them on this community event. And how would they feel about that? I don't know. I'm happy to talk to her, but I just feel like it would be more effective coming from
Right.
leadership.
Well, I guess that's great. We can send it, everybody can have access. I was thinking this today. I am the only one who has access to the housing email. Everyone can use that email account. Like all you have to do is log in. I can give you the login and we can everybody can send things from there. You can use my name if you want. We could craft emails together and then other people can send them out. It's a very labor intensive process. So,
Well, maybe,
uh,
Catherine, you could be the keeper of the list, but then you can start, like right now, we had 4 ideas or whatever of places
yeah.
where you could assign people to
Yeah. Yeah, so if we could
listing.
set up a meeting for early January and get our ducks in a row on this, I think that would be great. and we'll have the flyer from Fisher by then. We'll have a tighter description of what this event is going to be, which will be helpful. So,
And I think we have a free send for MailChimp for December because I don't think we've sent anything
okay,
this month. So at the very least, like a save the date we could get out this month.
okay,
And then
that's
a
a good
more
idea.
something with the graphics in January with more details. So we should take advantage of that we have this
Okay.
month.
I don't think we should send any save the dates though until we have that flyer, so we can tell them what they're seeing.
Yeah, we need the flyer. Yeah.
You think we'll have that before January?
I hope
Yeah,
so.
they're already working on it.
Okay, great.
I did a really rough draft yesterday, but they're fleshing it out, and we still need one more panelist. So
Oh.
we're working on that. So it's Sabina, Rebecca, Anna.
Can I sign off here and you guys can
Sure.
All right, I'm sorry to leave, but I really feel like we've made a lot of progress. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
No, and thanks everyone for your work this year.
Yeah.
A lot of great work, I think. It's a really good committee.
Can I just bring up one very quick thing?
Sure.
Did anybody notice that the town board has scheduled an open meeting next Tuesday on the zoning law?
Is that happening?
Really?
It is, yeah, it's happening. They had a meeting last night where they were talking about a resolution for it, and they were talking about passing something yesterday, but they pushed it off to next week. I was also going to bring up really quickly, there was a conversation at the town board meeting last night where some of the town board members seemed confused about how many or how much ARP funds were allocated to us.
I've told
So-
Anolis, but I can tell her again.
Yeah, so there was just a point of confusion that was brought up, between
I see.
Bennett and the supervisor and a couple other folks. So
Right. Well, Bill should know, but oh well.
I was just wondering whether Bill was going to try and ram through the zoning revisions before the end of the year.
Well, I think they discussed yesterday. I think they were trying to set a public meeting
Yeah.
for it before they passed anything. Yeah. So
The public meeting is next Tuesday.
yeah, right.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
And then they have one more town board meeting in December.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of springing out. I mean, this has been sitting there for 2 years. And
Right.
my personal opinion, it still needs a little tweaking before it gets passed into law. Once it's a law,
It's unlikely, George, that it'll get passed in 2 weeks. I mean,
yeah.
it hasn't been.
It's been on for 2 years. Excuse me? Is this?
yeah, the proposed zoning.
No.
Yeah, Deborah worked on
No,
it.
I
Deborah
worked
was
on it for
there,
3
yeah.
years. It's not happening next week. It's not.
Yeah,
what the
exactly.
meeting is about.
What I mean is it's been on the town website for 2 years.
Yeah, but
Oh.
they're not taking this up now. That's a whole other conversation.
Well, I agree, it should be. I just don't trust whatever they might be doing. Although
They're
I'm
not
pretty sure.
doing anything with it now. I can tell you that for a fact.
So why are they having an open meeting next week?
So that the public has a chance to comment on
But they're
specific
not
parts of it.
But they're not commenting on the draft zoning that I worked on with the committee. That's a different. They're doing a scenic overlay.
Oh, if it's just a scenic overlay. I mean, the problem is it's so vague about this damn stuff.
Okay.
I thought the scenic overlay was already voted
No,
for.
it has to go
No.
through a process, and
Yeah.
it's a seeker process. It's a legal process, and that's what's happening. So just don't worry.
Okay, no, it was just on the town board meeting.
No, it's confusing though. I agree.
Well, they're
It's
just so vague. It just says section 260, which is pretty much.
Well, it's for the scenic overlay law.
Yeah, well, I followed that, and that's been going on for 2 years as well.
Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to
Yeah,
hop
we have
off
to.
as well.
Also,
So-
can I just one quick thing before we adjourn? Are Thursdays good for people? We need to pick a day that actually works because I spend a lot of time rescheduling meetings. So, and John doesn't seem to be available on Wednesdays, which was our time for many years.
Thursdays are, I mean, the 5:15 time is good. The Thursday seems okay for me. I don't know about others.
generally good. Generally good. Yes.
Okay.
It's okay for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so as well for me too.
All right, great. That's good to know. All right. Thanks, everyone. And
Thanks,
have a good
everybody.
night.
Have a good night.
Thanks
Happy
so much for
holidays.
good work. Yep. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Catherine, feel better.
Feel good, everybody.
Thanks.
Sabina,
You too, Sabina.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
Bye.